Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our CFA program exam preparation workshop. My name is Peter Menzies, and I'm going to be taking you through what I think will be the key features or key strategies to get you through successfully that CFA Level 1 program exam in December. There's a few things to go through. There will be, my top 10 tips, which I hope you find useful for the exam, but also some information about Fitch Learning. So why don't I just show you the agenda for our presentation. As you can see, studying with Fitch Learning, we'll go through what are the possibilities for you if you're interested in studying with us before your exam. Also, the top 10 tips of study, which I believe are very useful, and things which I wish I knew when I was taking the exams all those years ago now. Time for some questions as well. In case you have any queries, we're happy to take that at the end of the talk, and just your next steps, what you might want to do if you're interested with Fitch Learning. So why don't we get right underway here. So Fitch Learning, we are a training provider with offices around the world, and we've been essentially training candidates towards the CFA program for almost 20 years. Over 3,000 candidates have gone through our program every year over those 20 years. And why I say that is simply because to say that we are very experienced at this, and our materials and questions of course, are based upon that experience. And there is a full range of classroom and online learning options, which I'll show you. And especially regarding, of course, the online learning. A product that we're quite proud of is called Fitch Learning Cognition, which is what they call adaptive learning. So it took us a few years to develop it, and what it really does is it does adapt personalizing to your areas of weakness. So as you're doing the questions, it tracks your progress, and of course, if you are struggling in an area, then it will prompt you to stay in that area and do more questions. And of course, if you're sailing through material, then it will stop you and say, right, you're obviously very good at this. Don't spend the next 43 hours doing all the questions. Go on and do the next topic. So we hope that is considered very useful to have that, especially when, of course, you've got such limited time, as I'm sure you do have. Now, there's also a chance to consolidate everything before your exam, especially in the month of November, with what's called classroom review packages and online review packages, whichever way you like to learn. But of course, a lot of chunk of material, of questions and summaries and mind maps, all I hope you find useful if you take that. Now, cognition, as I was saying, is different to what you may have experienced elsewhere with learning providers, because this is a personal experience that you have. There's thousands and thousands of questions across the topic areas, but really you don't need to have done all the questions in every topic, and maybe not even have the time anyway. And so what this does is adapting to your strengths and weaknesses. As you can see, the snapshots here show you, there's actually 10 sections in the syllabus, 10 areas like quants and ethics and, fixed income and so forth. And if you are, scoring to a high enough degree of level, for example, 70%, then it will show you that you have adequately mastered this topic for now. Move on to the next one. Of course, those which are not at the level required, it shows you color scheme that you have to do this again, or you're way below expectations here. So it's nice and simple to understand how much you need to do. All the metrics are there in terms of how many readings you haven't covered, how many days to the exam. So of course you are given all the key numbers. And I say that because it really is about pacing yourself with this study. There's so many chapters. I mean, they call them readings, don't they? There are 60 readings, and you have to generally push yourself through at a certain pace so that you don't end up having to have too much to do at the end. Now, you do have support, though, from our faculty, our I would say expert instructor team, because we are all charter holders with many years of experience behind us. Myself, I've been training towards the CFA program for 11 years, and many of my colleagues have done a lot more than that. So it's going to be like over 100 years of training experience amongst us in total and that's something you can tap into. Now, the help desk is a global help desk, so of course UK, but anywhere in the world, you have access to tutors and faculty members who can answer you quickly. Now, do you want to use the Fitch Learning for your exam prep? There are traditional traditional classroom courses available to you. Now there's a mixture. When you come to us during the days, offices in Mark Lane, near Fenn Street Station there, so you can come along to a classroom session that'll usually be 2 days a week over several months, covering up to 10 months in total. 10 days in total over those months. Or you can take weekend classes, usually Saturdays, so 10 Saturdays consecutively to cover again the teaching material. Or you can do 20 evenings, which essentially each evening counts as half a day. Again, usually 2 evenings across the required weeks. So over a case of 3 to 4 months, you will have covered the material in a classroom. Alternatively, you could come to an intensive course where you just do 5 days, blasting through the key areas, but then a lot of emphasis on you doing the extra material outside of the classroom. Now, alternatively, learning online, you have, whether you take the classroom package or not, you'll have access to cognition. So as I was saying, you basically have questions, but also pre-recorded, training, which is designed especially for distance learners. Comprehensive, thorough, and clear. Lots of examples. So you can learn, of course, purely from the Cognition portal, watching recordings, bite-sized recordings with questions. So even if you've got a small amount of time, it's always something you can learn through Cognition. And if you want to have access to live lectures, that's also available as well. You can basically see what's being streamed live during the evenings or the day, whereby you can, of course, see what questions are being asked, perhaps, of the trainer. Now, separately, review courses and mock exams. Review courses basically work out to 2 days or 4 evenings where it's going to be intense question practice. Right? Exam standard, obviously, with lots of debrief from the instructor. Separately, you can have that access online. Okay? Or you could just purchase the question bank from Fitch Learning. All of our questions, thousands of questions across level 1. Or you could just take the online mock exams. So 5 mock exams, 6 hours per mock exam with, of course, full debrief answers. So it's a solid base of material there. I mean, you can see what's interesting to you. And cognition will always be part of that, whichever learning option you take, whether classroom or online. Now, let's look at these top 10 tips. 10 tips which we have brought together as a faculty. We think these are the most important things to be aware of. So we'll take it from the top. First one, allocate enough time. Now, the official recommendation is 300 hours of study for level 1 and, in fact, 2 and 3 as well. But level 1, certainly, it's 300 hours. That breaks down to about 11, 12 hours over 6 months. It's basically a weekend, if you like. Both days doing 5 hours each, or it could be, one day doing 11 hours, which probably would not be recommended. But you get the idea. It's a significant amount of work. And we don't want you to waste your spare time. Obviously, you've got maybe some hours free in some of the days. You're not working too late, and you've got some energy. And cognition always gives you some sort of small bite-sized stuff you can do. You don't waste spare time. Lunch break, for example. It's really important to have that. Now, it's a very long plan, 6 months, of course, or indeed 3-4 months if you're thinking about now. You have to create a strong study plan. Working out where you need to be at certain dates. I need to finish this amount of topics by here so that I can get into the mock exams by here. And, that's crucial. So Fitch Learning online learning tools will basically, Cognition will do that for you. As soon as you start with us, choose a start date, that will then work out everything from there where you need to then finish. There are things like progress tests, which will be like mini mocks along the way, where you need to be to, of course, do those progress tests. And if you're falling behind, then the study plan will be adjusted to get you back on track, which of course means having to do more work. But without having that, a lot of people, I can imagine, I remember a lot of people who start earnestly, but they fall too far behind and then they just give up. So that is what we want to avoid. Now, avoid technical gaps in your knowledge. We all have our expertise. We all have our strong areas. It's important to know that the CFA Institute says they can basically test any learning outcome statement, which is explain, calculate, define, whatever it might be. They give you the list of learning outcome statements, and some will be in your strong areas, some in your weakest areas. So somebody with an accounting background will find, of course, things like deferred tax and revenue recognition, quite straightforward. And if you haven't got a background there, you'll struggle. But there will be some questions on that. So you have to be exam ready for what is required. Others with a mathematical background will find call parity or binomial models very simple. And those who don't might struggle. But what we want to do is focus on our weakest areas so that you can answer the exam questions. Not master it, but just exam level. Because otherwise you can be found out. Right? They generally will cover a full range of material. So if you focus on key areas, only your best areas, you'll be found out. I think the key wisdom here, everybody, is aim for 70% proficiency across 100% of the material. Then you are onto a strong hand there. Okay? Like I said, cognition picks that up. Now, the biggest topic areas at the level 1 exam, as you know, one is called financial reporting analysis, basically accounts, and one is ethics. Both of them are worth 15%. So 18 questions in the morning, 18 questions in the afternoon, part of a 120 question exam, is going to be devoted to ethics. And many people find the most difficult topic of all. You can't master it really. And the best you can do is have a good sense of what's the best answer. That only comes from having read their material. So I fully recommend everybody that you focus on the CFA Institute book. That's volume 1. It's about 200 pages. So that's a lot of material to read, but it's well worth it for 15%. There is no way better, there is in fact no way to be sure of being prepared besides using their material. So please do. And remember that it's all about doing little and often as opposed to cramming. Okay? That's the only way to get that done. They do also mention, the Institute does mention that if there was a borderline candidate, they usually would use the ethics performance to determine whether to pass that candidate. So you want to be obviously a good performance anyway on ethics. Now, true of any exam, have plenty of exam practice. Now, the online question bank, as part of your learning phase, will make sure that, of course, you are building your knowledge correctly at the right level, proficiency that you need to then get into the review phase at the end, the last month, where you're doing lots of, exam standard questions as part of review material. You're seeing a final countdown summary of all the key formulas and facts, mind maps to how they link together all the key facts, and then of course the mock exams. And that's key here. 5 mock exams, for example, from us, 3 hours times 2. Each exam, it would be 2 lots of 3 hours papers, AM and PM. It's vital that you take those and you see, of course, how physically exhausting and mentally exhausting it is. On top of that, as I say, as part of that, as well, you have access to book with us to come and do a proctored exam at our training centre in Mark Lane, whereby you will have the experience of coming in with other course candidates, sitting down with a pencil, filling in mark sheets, and handing that to the proctor at the end, who will then have it scanned by a Scantron machine. And of course, if you haven't filled in your ovals properly, you may not scan it properly. You'll have a lunch break, 3 hours, lunch break, and come back and do 3 hours. So everything that simulates the real thing. That is also great to have. So there'll be dates in the last month in November, for example, where you can come in, I think the last 2 Saturdays of November, for example, might be where you can come and do that proctored mock. Pace of study. Right, so I think we've said that, but it's more like a marathon rather than a sprint. You're having to really keep with it, disciplined. And if you keep that discipline all the way through, then there's no reason why you won't be successful. You want to make sure that you have at least a couple of weeks before the exam date where you're purely focusing on mock exams. Otherwise, you are doing yourself a disservice. So think about that. Pacing, being exam ready, taking breaks, of course, to make sure you're doing quality study as opposed to, of course, just sitting there and doing really nothing effective. We recommend you increase your weekly study time as you get towards the exam. If you can take the week off before the exam, of course, that makes sense, so you can really just hone in on those mock exams and get that momentum really ready now to finish it off. And try, though, not to overload that last week. I mean, obviously, it's more just making sure you cover all the areas you want to. You're not really doing too much extra learning. You're just sharpening up and finishing off. Okay. Now, get to know your calculator. The exam calculator, as you can see here, could be the BA2 Plus Texas Instruments. It is imperative that you know how to get the best out of the calculator. Otherwise, you end up wasting valuable time and may not finish the exam, or you're rushing when you shouldn't have had to rush, obviously getting a lower score than you should have. Now, there are all sorts of good functionalities here, like in corporate finance, the net present value function, IRR, of course, cash flows, saving time there, amortization, icon, right? So accounting and quants, data stats, so, calculate variance quickly. Calculate expected variance as well. There's all sorts of good things there. TVM, annuity values, perpetuity, whatever. So you should really just be using that calculator as much as possible. It's become second nature how to again get through the functionalities. Now, if you're not entirely confident about your calculator, then I strongly urge you to look at this link here. So this Fitch Exam Prep.com/calculator there. The guide that you get is excellent because it just covers everything that's available. Whether you take our products or not, that's perfect for anybody. It's great to use that. You have a look at it, okay? Now, get support from your peers or seek support from your peers. Of course, there's this usual thing of many hands make light work. In the sense of if you can help each other out, where you're struggling, where someone else is struggling, you can help each other. And of course, you can give each other, boost each other's confidence and keep each other on track, because you will have times when you think it's getting on top of you. And separately, of course, if you need help from our faculty, like I was saying, there are a large number of us who can answer your questions throughout your study time, especially in the last month where you need the most help. So there will be people like myself who will be designated to answer help desk queries in the last weeks. Now, as maybe in the past you've got through exams very successfully by cramming, maybe even university, A-levels, wherever it might have been. But here, it's not recommended that you try it. It is a huge syllabus, as you can see. That's really what makes the CFA program so challenging. It's never the depth, especially not level 1, but it's the range. So how many facts are you having to learn? It's incredible. How many thousands of facts are you learning? It's incredible. And the only way to do that is, of course, to take a study plan, which is over months. don't try to memorize answers to questions, or don't try to memorize questions because they won't appear again. The CFA Institute does not publish past papers for level 1 and level 2, and they therefore will write you new questions that you've never seen before. So the only way to be, of course, successful is to understand the material actually, rather than memorizing content. We therefore give you a wide variety of questions which cover you for things like where you have to understand rather than calculate, or you have to be able to do both. That will be covered with our atomized questions. That's how we do it, atomizing the content, even more atomized than learning outcome statements. You really can break down what you have to achieve. And although it sounds simple enough, but of course, overcoming the pressure of exam day, you owe it to yourself, of course, to get the best out of it on the day. You've done so much work by the time you get there. So little things that you should do to make sure you maximize your efforts. First of all, I would just say try to get an early night before the exam day, which is, I know myself, I'm not sure I always did that properly, but I wish I had. When I didn't get the full night's sleep, I felt so exhausted by the time I got to the afternoon session. And I thought, right, next time round I'm going to get a good night's sleep because I'm not really learning anything extra on that day, on that night before, and I'm now tired. So it is incredibly exhausting. Anyway, get a good night's sleep. You can start with your strongest topics. So if ethics is not your strongest topic, right, even though that will be the first batch of questions, you can say, well, I'll do that at the end. You know, all the questions are in a compartment, right, all by section. So you have your equity questions you want to do first. I'll do that. It'll be the contents table. Will tell you where to go, which question numbers are equity. Do that first, right, so forth. That way, at least you're not running out of time, rushing stuff which you could have got right, rather have done my best areas first. There will be questions that you don't know. We all have them. Don't worry. No negative marking at least. Guess, move on. You don't have to get every question right. It's not like 100% is what's required. Like I was saying, that's what cognition works. You've got to be good enough. So yes, besides that, be on time. Shockingly, how many people are late for registration for the exam. You know, 8:30, for example, the doors of the exam room will be closed, and latecomers will have to wait until after the exam has started. That's a horrible thing, to waste your own time like that just because you were late. And also, remember that each centre will have its own rules, so make sure you read the policy, you know, for that, regarding water and food and belongings, what's expected of you. You know, you've got to bring all your own material anyway. So, you know, calculator and pencil, and rubbers and or razor, whatever, you've got to bring all that yourself, and there's nobody's going to give you any spares. Bring your passport, bring your exam ticket printed out, all of that. Definitely read the policy to the letter. Follow it, because the proctors are very strict and required to enforce the rules. So I would hate for you to be disqualified for any reason that you didn't read the policy and you've now lost all your hard work. You'll be nervous, everybody will be all nervous on the exam day. Everyone else will be as well. The main thing is now I owe it to myself to deliver a good performance. Read the questions carefully and answer them carefully as you go through. Right, now, if you're interested in any of our learning options, then this is the time as to contact the learning advisor. So, for example, Steve Brady there, contact and see if you're interested in classroom, cognition, review packages, whatever's available will be discussed. And if you have any questions, of course, happy to take those at this time. I'll just check my screen here for any questions. And if no questions, then I will just say thanks very much for watching. I wish you the very best of luck with your studies. And thanks very much, everyone. Bye-bye for now.